there is the word of address in the Telegram channel, hello, and there is a question whether you can hear and see us. How about now? I'd like to make sure that we are in the same space that you have entered the Telegram channel. I can see that our attendees, both male and female, are joining us. While you are joining us, I'll give you some time to tell you about our team. I'm not by myself today. First of all, from the technical perspective, there will be simultaneous interpretation from Russian into English and back, and you will be able to watch our today's event in English. Our interpreter, Henrietta, is helping us today. Besides, we have a gesture language interpreter, Natalia. You can see Natalia on the screen. She will be interpreting the whole session today. I can see that some of the attendees have sent us comments that they can hear us now. Sorry for this delay. We're very happy to welcome you today. And I can see that we have managed to resolve our technical problems. We have the interpreter from Russian into English, and we have the interpreter who interprets into the gesture language. Now, I'd like to introduce our team, and you will be able to see everyone who has joined us today. I'll show the gallery of those who have joined us today to be today with us. And this is our organizational team, Yelena, Olga, Katya, and Igor. And we have our speakers today who have prepared their presentations for us. They are Antonia, Aluna, Anna, and Oleg. Our session will be 1 hour and a half long and is going to be quite dynamic. Our speakers will speak for a few minutes only. Please stay with us, be proactive, and do not lose the track of the event. I'd like to learn who has joined us today. So I'm going to launch a survey in our Telegram channel to check how the survey function works. You have seen the question in the Telegram. Who am I? What am I? Do I represent a Russian or an international company, a non-government entity, or what? So please answer these questions for us to understand who has joined us today so that we could learn more about ourselves. I can see some votes. For you to be able to see the results, you will have to vote in the Telegram channel. So I do invite you to join us using the QR code that you can see on your screens. And I can see that you are voting already. And we'll have another question in the chat box, whether you are whether you are familiar with DNI or not. So we need to understand who have joined us today. But now I'd like to hand over to our team members. And the first person will be Yelena Chernikova. Hello, from Innovation Culture. We've been helping companies build their innovation culture for 5 years, and we understand that diversity is one of the key elements of sustainable development that enhances companies' potential and abilities to innovate, because disruptive innovations are born at the overlapping point where opportunities get together. And when we develop diversity, you will see that diversity influences our capabilities to adapt to new agile methodologies and approaches. Besides, diversity improves a company's attractiveness to new talent, to potential partners, and it helps create new collaborations. And this agenda raises a lot of questions, including engagement practices and practices, unconventional patterns, and communication. That's why we are so happy to support the forum team and will continue it because we believe that this agenda is very relevant because it unlocks a new potential that used to be hidden before. Thank you. Okay, Olga is muted. Sorry. Hello, hi everyone. My name is Olga Burnevskaya. I am blonde. I'm 30 plus. I have large eyes and my hair reaches my shoulders. I'm wearing a light dress and I'm wearing a beautiful jewelry piece that was given to me by my daughters. I'm the co-founder of Diversity Brand, and I am an active member of the I.D.E.A community. Well, we are used to such introductions at the beginning of presentations at forums. People who have a good eyesight can get visual information. That's why including self-description and self-introduction becomes a good practice to deal with people with inabilities and eyesight impairment. A few years ago, someone asked me why we were focusing on these complicated topics, whether we were exposed to discrimination or whether our colleagues were underestimating us. I tend to go back to this question, trying to give an answer to the question why. Well, it seems that it is not only the work I do, but it is part of my life philosophy. Every day we face stereotypes, and quite often, quite unconsciously, we accept that. But what is crucial for a modern person is to feel how diverse the world around us is, how diverse people are around us. And that's why diversity and inclusion are an opportunity to demonstrate empathy, to imagine ourselves in the shoes of someone else, to see that the world is big and diverse. Diversity begins with every one of us, with whether we tend to think about what we're doing, what our team is, what kind of people we are dealing with, who our friends are, whom we have in our circle, whom we don't, whose stories we tend to share, whose narratives we never think about. And through that, we build our future. The next slide, slide number 5. Let's try to imagine our community and our surroundings. Take a look at this frame. It is the frame of judgments, guesses, disputes, and stereotypes, which restricts our innovative and discovery capabilities. And I think that working together we'll be able to influence our future and how much we are going to be aware of the environment and tolerant to it. D&I is the topic that is just starting in this country. And being at ground zero, we can build this agenda taking into account all the relevant meanings, context, and our vision. Thank you. I think I'm the next. I'm going to share my slide. To build up on what the colleagues have said, I'm going to tell you about the unique story that is happening in the market and the story that we are writing together. I started D&I about 1.5 years ago. I started focusing on D&I, and there were quite few of us, but now the number of people promoting this agenda in the corporate world is growing. I remember the time when I was trying to find colleagues who focused on D&I, and I managed to find about 5 people in the Russian market. But now we know that our community is quite big, and it is definitely larger than 100 or 150 people, and it keeps growing, which is amazing. And the number of colleagues who are experts in this area is growing day by day. And there are quite a few of us in the market now, and we are not competing with each other, but we got acquainted with each other and decided that the most valuable contribution to the market and for our own benefit would be to pull our efforts together to implement joint projects. Thus, we are demonstrating D&I principles in the real world. We pulled our efforts to enhance each other's expertise and to create a unique product in the market that would help our clients and companies to create the D&I culture, make fewer mistakes, have more expertise in the matter, to have a system of support, etc. And it seems to me that the fact that we have pulled our efforts and the fact that we are here today at this session is a great example. Hello, everyone. I'm happy to be with you here today. My name is Igor, and I am 27 years old. I have black hair and brown eyes, and I have bushy eyebrows and long eyelashes, and I have a small beard. I'm also wearing a black turtleneck. I'm wearing a small black hat, and I'm wearing spectacles with a brown frame. What would I like to tell you about? When we were thinking about setting up this forum, when we were thinking about our community, we arrived at a conclusion that it would be cool to bring Western practices to Russia, to think about how our Western colleagues from Western companies are implementing and promoting diversity practices. Well, at the same time, we should not deny the fact that the context in the Russian market is different, in some cases materially different compared to our Western colleagues. That's why it is super important when we share and demonstrate Western practices of inclusion, diversity, equity, and awareness to remember our Russian context. If it is not the starting point, it is one of the key points we begin with to put across important statements of the diversity culture for businesses. And if we continue talking about the concept, then the important contextual focus we are talking about is this assembly point, this focus point that the business should remember about, and we as a team should be aware of it, given that we are declaring important diversity culture postulates, and this will be the focus area of this forum and around the creation of the community in the market. Hi, everyone. My name is Ekaterina Gorlova. I'm a 30-year-old woman. I have dark hair and blue eyes and light skin. I have a dark skirt and a blue blouse, and I am a co-organizer of the I.D.E.A initiative. I sincerely believe that business is the driver behind any change. Think about it. We all work for companies, we're colleagues, entrepreneurs, partners, and employees, and we are all involved in implementing ideas, but at the same time, we consume products and we go shopping, we go to restaurants and exhibitions. On the one hand, we are clients of companies and clients who consume services. What is service quality? We should say that it goes beyond properties of particular goods or delivery of goods or even what we see in shops, but it is also about what our boss says, how couriers call us, how we hear laughter from restaurant kitchens or jokes cracked. Companies start with this themselves. Of course, small and medium-sized businesses find it easier to collect feedback from clients. The speed of response is quick. Everything is driven by the boss. If account is too high, we'll make it lower. If you cannot leave your home, we'll deliver our goods. If you have a dog, you can visit our cafe where pets are welcomed. But as companies become larger, highly marginal companies find it challenging to implement changes and embed them in their DNAs. In particular, given the questions asked, the retail is asking why they should engage their front desk in inclusion. Other companies are saying we need to give opportunities to the older generations, and the colleagues are challenging it by saying that it is a discrimination of younger ones. And so against this background, it is important to demonstrate how the inclusion strategy influences business performance. And moreover, to implement effective solutions, I'm looking forward to our guests' presentations. To implement effective solutions, this topic needs to be trialed. We need to plan and fine-tune your approaches, do iterations, and I have to say that it is an endless process, but it is worthwhile. The new system of coordinates has D&I as the principle for team awareness, for customer trust and attractiveness of business. And actually, this is where we have a comprehensive solution or an integrated solution: inclusion, diversity, equity, and awareness. And these four areas harmonically merge together as I.D.E.A. Oh, that sounds so beautiful. Thank you very much. You know, I was just imagining this universe, and I had a vivid picture in my head. Now, let's move on. We have introduced our team, the I.D.E.A project team, and now we are turning to our speakers. We have invited a number of speakers who represent business, who are advisors, who are from the academic world, so that we could cover D&I from different perspectives and angles. And the first speaker today, whom I'm happy to invite, is our invited guest, Antonio Beba. Antonio is a DE&I lead with Pfizer in Europe, and he will talk about the D&I vision in Europe, and he will talk about the international arena D&I concepts. Antonio, over to you.
Thanks a lot, Sania, and Privyet, меня зовут Antonio и очень приятно. So these are the only and last word in Russian, a part of spasiba that I will say at the end. But thanks a lot for inviting me. So my name is Antonio Beba. I'm an Italian. I'm originally Italian. 37 years old. I'm very dressing in Italian way, as you can see, for the one that you can see. I have a shirt, I have a jacket. So I like classy way of dressing. And I'm dressing as well glasses because I'm getting old. So apart my black hair, you don't see that there are a lot of white hair that are coming as well. So my pleasure to be here today. Thanks a lot to Ksenia. Thanks a lot to our D&I Russian team for inviting us. We know that diversity, equity, and inclusion is a journey. We are aware that Russia, you are starting your journey as well on diversity and inclusion, and this kind of conference are very important because sharing best practice is the only way to understand how we can do things different, and how also different people from different region, country are approaching the same issue. So our journey at Pfizer Europe started in 2014. I'm a D&I practitioner since almost 5-6 years. I was a local D&I team in Belgium, and since last year, I'm the regional operation lead for Europe. For a company that, as you can understand, such as Pfizer, that is a global, it's important to understand different dimensions. This because we need to ensure that we tackle and we include all the stakeholders in the conversation. And when we are approaching a global dimension, as you can understand, this can become a challenge if you don't have a strategy. Reason why we consider 3 main dimensions. So we consider the global dimension that is composed by our global headquarters that is in US, but as well from other regions such as Africa, Middle East, Asia, Latin America, and so on. After we have our regional dimension, that in this case is Europe, and after we have our local dimension that is represented by our colleague resource group lead that are representing each country in Europe. So in Europe, as you can understand, we have 26 different colleague resource groups, so 26 different countries. And as you can understand, each of them, they have a different knowledge, different maturity on the topic, but as well different social context. So it's absolutely important to understand this difference, and most important to understand that diversity, equity, and inclusion is a journey. It's a journey that is made by education, is made by challenges, but is made as well by achievements. So the best way to create an inclusive environment is to have, first of all, a strong culture that is leading from the top and arriving until the bottom. To do so, we ensure that we follow, as in a corporate environment, our global guidelines that are providing on each year. And on these guidelines, we translate based on our European dimension. So I can give you an example. Inclusive culture. Inclusive culture for us is a key area because, as you can understand, whatever is the diversity that you want to support and represent, without inclusion, you cannot create any kind of strategy. Because without first creating an inclusive environment, you can tackle any kind of D&I challenge. So to create this, we had to deliver at the European level an inclusive culture training that was delivered to more than 7,000 colleagues in 14 different countries. But to do so, of course, is a training that is including understanding of what is an unconscious bias, or how we can be biased in our relation, in our decision making, in our process. So diversity, equity, inclusion is not only the right thing to do, but it's something that to make us also more competitive in our way of working, in our way of delivering, in our case, a breakthrough to our patients. So it's not only the right thing to do, it's the right thing to do is what makes us also competitive in the market. And most important is at Pfizer is one of our values. So we try always to live our operational life, living our values. So making sure that all the values are always there in everything we do. To do so is important also to understand, as I was telling before, how to design and how to translate for each local reality. This is the reason why it's important to include in the conversation, again, in terms of inclusion, the right stakeholders, in order to make sure that all the people involved in a process are aware of the goal that you want to accomplish and are supporting with a specific know-how. At the European level, we are working in close collaboration, not only on the D&I dimension, but as well with the HR, with the human resource organization, with the talent acquisition organization, with the business. We want to make sure that the only way to embed D&I in our business is speaking the same language of the business. So we need to ensure that we are totally aligned with everything that is happening at the operational and business level. So again, is fundamental to understand how we can engage, again, how we can create allies, because allyship is as well an important topic. an allyship, we don't like definition, but I really like a definition that we had some time ago, is that someone that is using his privilege for people that they don't have the same privilege. So, and that is very important when you want to accomplish a change. So everyone is involved in this change. Diversity, equity, inclusion is not for an unrepresented community, but is for everyone, because every time that we interact with another person, this interaction has an impact that can be positive or negative. And when is negative, will be negative also the operational outcome. So everything is totally linked. I know that my 10 minutes potentially have been already out, so I don't know if you have any question, I would be very happy to respond.
Antonio, grazie mille. This is very valuable to hear Antonio's perspective as someone who works internationally, that D&I is becoming the business hygiene, and it is an important topic that we have to approach in a very comprehensive and cautious manner. Antonio, thank you very much for your very eloquent and brilliant motivation speech. You know, we are enthusiastic about learning more about it and starting implementing D&I practices. We'll move on and we'll turn to our next speakers. And please allow me to hand over to Igor. Hi, everyone again. Well, speaking about Antonio's inspirational and engaging presentation, I also wanted to get a deep dive into the international practices. And now, speaking about the business D&I hygiene, we'll turn our focus and we'll talk about why the business needs to take a deep dive in the diversity agenda. We'll talk about why D&I is needed by companies, by stakeholders. It seems that it is needed, but why? What are the keynote statements that work here? And we'll ask Aliona to talk about. Aliona is a project manager with BCG, and she will talk about why the business needs D&I. Aliona, are you with us? Yes, Igor, thank you very much. Colleagues, good afternoon, everyone. It is a very unconventional format. Thank you very much for inviting me, and I think that it is a super important topic. Let me tell you what I look like. I am a woman. I am 30 plus. I have long dark hair and brown eyes. I am wearing black round glasses. I have a dark blue sweater and a shirt. I've been familiarized with the D&I topic a long time ago. I started supporting it when I was a student. I was a volunteer and supported inclusive education. I think it is hyper important, in particular for business. We performed lots of studies and research, and we produced estimates and proved that those companies that have enough diversity at the level of leadership roles across the entire organizations, from top management to mid-management, such companies outperform other companies in terms of revenue, in terms of their profit margins, etc. And what is particularly important is that companies that support diversity manage to get almost 20% more revenue return on investments in innovations, which is crucial in our modern days. It is also important to know that when we conducted large-scale research, we discovered very exciting things. Worldwide, the surveys showed that about 90% of people said that they had D&I programs in the companies, but about 1/4 of those companies were taking advantage of those programs. It means that they became aware of this agenda and they understand the importance of it, but there is a long way to go to successfully implement these methodologies, as Antonio mentioned. Therefore, there is a question about how to make such programs efficient. And working with our customers, we realized that it would be important not only to look at talent recruitment as a starting point, but we need a holistic picture of the entire career progression, from recruitment and selection to retention and promoting to leadership positions. And as Antonio noted, we need to focus on corporate culture. Let me talk about what happens if we don't focus on it. Could you please move on? Thank you. So the first thing that happens is at the entry point, there may be an insufficient number of applicants from various groups, and there might be prejudices, and therefore even at the entry level there is not sufficient diversity. Then later on, when people who belong to groups that are less represented do not get that a circle of communication compared to people belonging to other groups. So they may feel lost, and because of lack of people connection, they might lose development opportunities in the company as well as promotion opportunities. And as someone keeps growing in an organization, they emerge new challenges in terms of other parts of human lives. People find it more and more challenging to find their place in this process. For example, looking at women, it is important to get back on track after maternity leaves, when many women have to prove their value from scratch, and quite often they are off track in terms of their careers. And we should not forget about the fact that those who represent minority groups may find it challenging to be leaders. Quite often there are two, or even there is only one person, and they are under pressure. On the one hand, there is a pressure associated with performing a leadership role, associated with doing their job right, but there are also expectations associated with the role model, with the fact that those persons have to be role models for everyone else in the organization. And if we do not support such people, there might be risks associated with burning out and actually attrition, risks of losing such people. Therefore, as part of D&I programs, the first thing that is important to understand is to understand what's going on in your organizations. At which particular step there are challenges and there are some gaps that need to be bridged. Let's look at the next slide for an example of what it might look like. And again, it is a universal example of how which may be applicable to any group. We conducted a pretty detailed research, and I'm going to talk about the methodology in some more detail. The first thing that we do is we measure where we are, the as-is status. We need to understand the methodologies that we have and how they work. Then it is important to define the list of measures for each step of our career. And it is important to note that we do not only implement policies, but we need to assess how those policies work. If someone has a flexible work schedule, we need to understand the effect of that flexible work schedule and how it may work for specific managerial roles. There are some examples of successful approaches that are useful, and when you embark on this path, I recommend that you pay attention to the following. It is not my opinion, it is validated by global research. quite often those measures that are proposed by top executives are different very much from measures that your key groups are in need of. There are certain general things that have proven their effectiveness, such as training sessions, diversity trainings and growth trainings, trainings focused on companies' policies, but there are other diamonds that we tend not to think about right away. For example, if we look at this third stage, the mid of people's career, which includes family support. For anyone, in particular for a top executive, it is a super important measure that works for women in particular. Ksenia, I know that I have exceeded my time limit. Could you please let me know whether there are questions? There are no questions so far, and the time is up. You're right. Thank you very much. It seems to me that it is very valuable that we are not talking about some basic stuff like definitions and giving estimates of the value of this approach. It seems that we have passed that stage. We are beyond that stage, and we are now trying to find answers to questions about what particular actions could be implemented. We need to reach an alignment. It seems that we have reached an alignment in terms of definitions, and now we are starting implementing these practices in our companies at different paces. Thank you very much for immersing us in these real-life practice-focused steps. Please allow me to hand to Olga. Yes, thank you very much, Aliona. This is very exciting. You know, we often talk about the success of international practices focused on inclusiveness. Antonia gave us a deep dive in this agenda, but we do not fully understand the picture with diversity and inclusion in Russia, not in terms of definitions, but in the context of culture and history of this country. Diversity is not only a principle, but diversity is related to research data. And you know, there is a question about tolerance or intolerance to certain topics, and there is a question about why there could be a difference in perception. Russia has had its own development path, including D&I. And can we see any points of comparison or similarity with other countries? I'd like to ask to address this question to Oleg Kukhlaev. Oleg is the head of Ethnopsychology department with the Moscow State Psychological and Pedagogical University. Oleg leads research programs in the sphere of intercultural development, and he actually combines his research of looking at these matters from a research perspective. Oleg, I'll be happy to address it. Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to introduce myself. Well, it seems to me I look as an intellectual. I'm a man with a beard and a pigtail. I mean, my hair pigtail. Because if I had another pigtail, you would never see it in a Zoom conference. So there would be no point in talking about it. As compared to Antonia, I cannot say that that I'm very dressy. Therefore, I'm wearing, well, I don't know. I think it is a turtleneck or a sweater, and the color is hardly distinguishable. And I'd like to say a few words about what Igor has started talking about, the context in which the inclusion agenda is being implemented in Russia, because there is no doubt that we need to see the context. as Leo Tolstoy said, it was so smooth on paper, but we forgot about landslides, and we have to actually make sure that we do not fall into them. And I'll talk about it from a research perspective. It may sound dull, but it seems to me that it makes it possible to talk about the fact that it is close to reality and close to something that is happening in real life. I'll talk about Russia's readiness to take DNI on board. And whether we are talking about DNI or brushing our teeth or other practices, these are our values. This is what we believe to be right or wrong, important or not important. And quite often we talk about values, but we know little about those values and about how they work in a real life rather than as declarations, what our real values are. And at a country level, it is difficult to talk about it. You know, some people tend to speculate about the Russian spirit or something else, but if we do not indulge in fantasies or speculation, we need to use reliable data. It is challenging, but there are some things to rely on. Over the past decades, the biggest the best information was collected the world by World Survey that has already gone through 7 iterations, 7 rounds. And actually, one of the most famous sociologists and experts in cultural development created a theory of social modernization who convincingly demonstrated using this data and using other data that country level values depend on survivability. And survivability is such a critical topic. When survivability is not guaranteed, it completely defines our life strategy. This feeling of insecurity leads to authoritarian trends when we try to get together behind a strong leader and actually deny diversity. And of course, these survivability values contradict cultural diversity and DNI. And vice versa, if we perceive survivability as something taken for granted, it makes us more open, more tolerant, it gives more opportunities for the freedom of choice. And the fact that individual free choices are based on self-fulfillment and they coexist separately. And in this particular case, I may call it self-expression, and it demonstrates openness to someone who is alien, and it is a value background at the country level. I'm talking about it. And what happened globally over the past 50, 60, 70 years, we're reaping the fruit here and now. It is an unprecedented epoch of security that began in 1950s that led to a massive shift towards the value of self-expression. And if we look at Russia, one of the 4 pieces of news that I'd like to cover within the remaining time is as follows. Those 4 pieces of news are in a classical pattern. 2 good pieces of news and 2 bad ones. Let's start with the negative ones. If you look at Russia, you will see that it is highlighted as the darkest violet or pink color. It is somewhere on the left and closer to the center. So the Russian values are more likely to be survivability values, and we are weakly focused on self-expression. We are at the background of all those changes. And I should say that our country is an anti-self-expression wing of the process. But I believe that our careful audience might have noted it. Let's look at the change. There will be some good news as predictable. We can see that the picture has moved to the right towards the value of self-expression, despite the fact that as compared to the leaders on the right, our position has not changed. But if we look at the dark spot and draw an arrow going down, we'll see that its position has changed significantly, that along the axis, it has made a big shift over a decade. So we can say that we are going together with the world from the value of survival to the value of self-expression. But the starting point was entirely different compared to the Protestant Europe or English-speaking countries or the biggest number of Catholic Europe countries. Given that our starting point is different, our results are entirely different, and which is well known and clearly understandable to all D&I experts. We can be inclusive with respect to our country, and not only can, but we should. This was negative news. So, but how can we call it negative? It is a reality. Reality is neither good or bad. It is just a piece of joke to structure my material. Now it is a good news. Again, I cannot call that good. Well, the next negative news. How does it work? How does it change? What are the changes driven by? The first is related to what's going on to change in the values is the period effect. There are worldwide trends that are affected by the here and now situation. On the slide, you can see the 2020 data, but values change with a time lag. When we have the World Value Survey 8 in 5 or 10 years, we'll see a slowdown. The period effect is associated with the current survival situation. I do not have to remind you of COVID-19 or growing inequality in terms of income. And that, again, draws that shift towards survival compared to the self-expression value. This is bad news. And now I'll finish with the relatively good news, or surely good news. The majority of change in values is happening through the change in generation cohorts. Over the past 70 years, it has worked as follows. Globally, worldwide, younger people tended to be more open towards self-expression values. It is an inevitable process, no matter how inclusive we are towards those who are 40 plus. We understand that we'll exit and younger people will replace us, and it is a normal life cycle. And those younger generations will be more tolerant and more exclusive in accordance with the worldwide law that we established over the past 50, 70 years. And within the remaining minute, I'd like to give you 3 bullet points that we have to take into account. Let's start with the bottom bullet point. It is obvious to everyone, and it is more obvious from this data. It is the focus on younger generations. We should not be ashamed of it. Younger people are more inclusive, and they bring about self-expression values, which is indeed very important. Therefore, if we are talking about our country, it is crucial to disseminate the idea. Given that we are trying to catch up with the rest of the world, we have to disseminate idea among younger people. The second bullet point is our modest ambitions. We had a low start, and we have to take it into account, treat ourselves inclusively, be aware that we are going along with the world trend. But at the same time, we have to be aware that we should not take Scandinavian practices and trying to actually fit it on, like trying to put an owl on a globe. And actually, we have different starting points, and we have to be very cautious and careful. And at the same time, we need to remember that safety and security rank first in our country. And worldwide, self-expression works only if security is ensured, which means that if someone declares or wants to declare DNI but has failed to ensure security and safety in place when salaries are at the survival level, and when the relationships are abusive, this is not an environment for DNI implementation. DNI does not work not because it is bad, but because that environment does not have a basic survival values implemented and fulfilled. On the other hand, if a company implements DNI and it works, we can say that the basic values, survival values, have been ensured. And now, thank you. Wow, Oleg, I'd like to thank you for your very honest input and communication. On the one hand, you rely on science and vision of where we are, but on the other hand, you gave an earnest picture calling a spade a spade. And when we fail to ensure the basic comfort and survival, then it is hard to talk about D&I principles. If we want to be competitive, if we want to be with a company, if we want to be together with the developed world, we need to move on, change, and develop. Oleg, thank you. And we are moving on. And before I hand over to Katya, I'd like to suggest the following. Let's go back to our Telegram channel to answer one question. I can see that we have the biggest number of people who have answered these questions. You can and we can see who has joined our session and the extent to which you are familiar with DNI. And this is the question that I would like to address before we listen to the next speaker. Are there DNI policies in your company? Yes, no, I don't know. I see that the majority have said no. And now we'll learn about the countrywide statistics. Katya, over to you. Thank you. Well, it's surprising how frequently we face requests for documents, statistics, and numbers to give convincing information for top management and owners to support diversity and inclusion. Despite the fact that the economic business case for diversity has been proven by Fatalis, McKinsey, Credit Suisse and it was about 20 years ago, but it is never sufficient. They want proof that gender diversity is useful for business, but they never think about asking for proof that male-dominated teams are good for business. But I should say that there is a shortage of D&I data for Russia. Many companies collect data, but they keep these data in-house. But there is an international company, ENG, that studies D&I in Russia. Please allow me to introduce Anna Spirina, Marketing Communication Directors, ED&I Ambassador for ENG. She will show us the survey results and dynamic for the past 6 years. It's good news. Anna, over to you. Colleagues, good afternoon. I'm happy to greet all of you. Yekaterina has introduced me, and I'd like to tell you, I'd like to describe myself. I am a brown-eyed woman with black hair. I am 34 years old. I'm wearing a blue blouse, and I'm wearing pretty large earrings with large blue stones. I hope I have managed to describe myself well. Now I'll try to talk without using earphones. We don't hear you this way. Not yet. And this picture is frozen, I think. Can't hear Anna. Anna, we can't hear you yet. Could you please say a couple of words? Well, there's a technical glitch. Anna, we can't hear you. Super. You should be able to hear me now. Excellent. Thank you. So there seems to be a problem with technology. I'll talk about our survey dynamics, and I've been dealing with ED&I surveys since 2015. This was the first time when we launched our survey. And I'll try to give you some background, and I'll talk about the new research. You can see the QR code on the slide. It is a very fresh study that will be publicized in spring, and will share all the results. And I usually support a large representative sampling process. We have about 300 respondents. Please do join us to contribute to our study, and we'll be happy to share the results. Could you please change the slide? Well, I selected a few numbers that are of interest. Of course, we have many more numbers, and it could take up a long time talking about them, maybe next time. What was interesting? 79% of respondents said that they had cases when themselves, their friends, colleagues, or acquaintances felt that their career progression chances were limited. This is quite an interesting story, that people had this to a certain extent. And of course, it was interesting to know what was the trigger behind it, why the chances were limited. And I listed top 3 points. 78% said that it was because of age, 84%, and 78% said that they had limited capabilities, and 5% said that because of their disabilities. And actually, 78% noted that lack of infrastructure was one of the barriers when people with disabilities could not be engaged. And over the past years of our study, there was an increase in the percentage of companies that started employing people with disabilities, and 5% of such companies started employing them. And 84% of our respondents have expressed that they have concerns that their age over 50 or even younger may serve as an obstacle. And it is interesting that age was not the issue highlighted by those who were over 50. The majority of people have such concerns after 25. Those who are 18 are not worried about it, but those over 25 tended to give such an answer. The next slide. What is interesting about it? In the Telegram chat box, you answered this question about whether you have ED&I policies in your companies. Based on current surveys, 44% said yes. If we turn the clock back, there were only 11% of respondents, that was 6 years ago, who said that they had such policies. So you see this increase from 11% to 44% in terms of the number of respondents who showed that who said that they had such policies. I'm not going to drill down into detail whether that such policies may be implement. I'd like to highlight that the percentage who did not know how to answer this question has been decreased. In the past, 5 or 6 years ago, there was a bigger percentage of people who were completely clueless and did not know what we were talking about. Now the level of awareness is improving. On this slide, you can see some focus areas that are being implemented. Well, 44% said that they had such policies, 40% said that they did not have such policies, but it was about 40%, if I'm not mistaken, who said that they did not have such a policy in the company per se, but they had a number of initiatives outside their policies to support various social groups. They were not framed as policies, but they existed. And you can see the initiatives that the majority of companies embarked on. On the next slide, we have listed some data about the pros and cons of such policies. And I'm not going to read out all the benefits of such policies, but I'd like to draw your attention to the fact that the existence of such a formal policy makes it possible to attract top talent, mix teams together, and improve business efficiency in general. If we speak about disadvantages, or that there is a fear that such a policy may be for box ticking purposes, just a formality. People like to do something and then pigeonhole it. Then managers tend to say that such policies lead to an additional workload on managers. Quite often there is a question about who is going to be responsible for this, and the majority of our respondents say that this policy is mostly the responsibility of HR departments. 68% of respondents said so. There are very few companies where there is a dedicated ED directors or managers, and for the time being, HR departments are responsible. There is a question about whether companies track the impact of such policies on business performance. So far, it does not look cool. 48% say no, but to a great extent, it is associated with the fact that you need to have a system of KPIs. We also asked our respondents whether they had KPIs to track implementation of such policies. It's interesting that 46% said that they did have KPIs and 46% said no. It's also curious. And quite often, KPIs were implemented as a global at a global level. But anyway, this is a reflection of a positive trend. We've been doing it since 2015, and it is interesting that this survey has transformed from female leadership, women's leadership, towards different social groups and towards taking a look at how they are doing. And I would be most grateful if you take part in our survey. And we are focusing on people with disabilities, on 50 plus, because it is indeed a very relevant topic given the current developments in this country. Young people are great, but there are quite a lot of mature experts who are facing challenges. And I think I'll call it a day as far as my presentation is concerned. Thank you. Well, thank you. These are very meaningful numbers to understand the Russian market, and it would be great to take a deeper dive in them. Thank you very much for a very informative presentation. Ksenia, I'd like to say that Anna is an ambassador of ED&I. She joined the company 7 years ago, and he started and launched such surveys in this country. We had not had such surveys before, and every year this questionnaire is expanded, and we can track the dynamics looking at prior year data. Thank you very much for your effort. Thank you for collecting this data, because this material is indeed very valuable to understand where we are, to understand the progress made, to understand the most relevant topics and less relevant topics. Thank you, and we're looking forward to getting your final findings in April at our forum. So now our invited speakers have already delivered their presentations. Antonio has shared his global vision of DNI. Alena focused on the need of certain steps from the perspective of consultants. Oleg has given us an academic perspective and put us back on the ground to look at the current situation in Russia in terms of promoting self-expression and authenticity. And we have learned about survey results. And now we are turning to the second part of our event, and we would like to tell you about our project. And I'd like to hand over to Yelena. Yes, hi everyone. I'm going to talk about myself for a few moments. I'm a girl. My height is 164 centimeters. I'm not tall. I have wavy hair, and I'm wearing a white long sleeve, and I'm wearing red lipstick. And we are also focusing on changes. We have a change experience design effort. And what does it show us? Of course, we like to say that even one individual is sufficient to change a company. But in actual fact, the answer is yes and no, because we are being cunning here. Changes start with building a community of those who support the craziest ones, or perhaps people who have the most exciting agenda, those who are ready to promote change. They create new links, new solutions and networks that help leaders promote something very meaningful. And I'm happy to actually forerun the presentation by the community, because communities change the world, and communities in the sphere of diversity and inclusion are something that the business needs. Handing back to Ksenia. Well, when people are talking about communities, my associations are, cross-fertilization and energy friction. When I join new communities, we see a lot of we've had a lot of experience exchanging insights, and I feel that I'm not all by myself, and there are new ideas generated. Katya, over to you. Thank you very much. Well, today we've became convinced once again that implementation of D&I requires an integrated approach. We understand that D&I affects companies' performance and drives innovation based on international studies. Russian surveys are eloquent, showing a quantum leap. Almost 50% of companies have such practices, and the other half don't. Some are implementing something tangible, other companies are observing them. It depends on the company's policies and business thinking. There are companies who are pioneers who launched this approach 10 years ago. They do it by trial and error, and other companies are taking a page from their book. Other companies have some special focus, for example, on gender equality or on equity for the disabled. The third group are observers, but we understand that diversity and inclusion is something that is not just a trend or something fashionable. We, as leaders of the D&I agenda, face a big diversity of requests because companies are focusing on different challenges. Quite often they ask us to show the D&I framework, what belongs to it and what is outside. Well, I don't think we have to impose any constraints, but we could structure the approaches. So, what is inclusive communication and how to implement it? How to adapt the D&I program to Russian specific? How to assess efficiency? How to avoid reputational risks, whether we are promoting market diversity or anything else? How to communicate this agenda in-house? How to convince colleagues and executive leadership? So there are numerous questions we address every day. And when we help companies address their D&I agenda, please show the next slide. We understand that your inquiries and requests are very much individualized, are very much customized. There are no universal solutions, and we rely on best practices, on academic research and international experts to implement D&I tools and solutions. Igor? Right, yes. Thank you very much for giving me the floor, and thank you very much for the context. It is indeed true. Quite often people are asking about the framework, about the pain points. It seems to be something that is not clear to the Russian market, though based on the previous presentations, there are quite a few people who are focusing on it. What would I like to talk about? I'd like to say that we are launching an educational community platform. Why is it a community platform? A community and a platform are different things. On the one hand, it is about what Yelena and Xenia were talking about. Indeed, there is a strong wave that can do cool things. On the other hand, it is about a platform, about a solid basis that would not only... Igor, sorry. We have complaints that the sound is lost. Yes, sure, thank you. We do not want to miss anything. Yes, sure. Could you please say something? The sound is on. Do you hear me? We do. Super. Let's double check it. We have conflicting information. Is there sound? Okay, friends, let me know that you can hear us. They say that they can hear us but cannot hear you. And now I can come over to you. You need to choose Russian. Come over here. Colleagues, do you hear me now? Igor, you need to choose the Russian channel. I've done it. You should hear me. No, there's no sound. Well, the audience are complaining that they cannot hear you. You should have run up to my office. Here you go. Well, uh, well, maybe you heard me there, but still, I'd like to repeat it briefly what I was talking about. We are launching an educational platform, community platform. Actually, it is a thing that is that consists of two elements. On the one hand, it is about the community, the energy that can drive change and push the remaining part of the society towards change. But on the other hand, it is something about very solid, stable starting point, a pivot, a platform. Those who are not indifferent to this agenda, but they are not actively involved, will also find this platform useful. So what is it about? So there is an offline spot and an online spot. So it is a modern, inclusive platform, and I think that those of you who follow up on our communication will understand what kind of inclusive platform we're going to have. It is a physical spot, a physical space that will welcome all of us as guests of the I.D.E.A 2022 forum. And the online spot is a closed Telegram channel that has already begun to be active during our today's discussion and the surveys. And what else is important when we talk about the online and the offline spot? On the right-hand side, in the yellow box, you can see specific elements that are related to these two spots. I think including the education and events. I'd like to highlight that all these bullet points are focused on making sure that we saturate, educate and the community, and on the other hand, give resources, share best practices for them to move on and do physical things. It is not only about talking, it is about doing. Each our action will motivate, charge people with energy, give an opportunity to get immersed in something cool and new that you have not heard about. These will be frames, canvases, tables that you can take on board and start doing something in your companies and your businesses. This is something that we actually miss when we talk about diversity, because people think that it is about the moral aspects. It is about moral aspects, but it is about taking it on board and doing. Now, I.D.E.A Day 2022, it is the cherry on top, the climax of what we're talking about. April 2022 is the time when we'll hold the first Russian language forum on the diversity, equity, and inclusion culture. And what is important in the context of this forum is that this forum will be adjusted to the context. It will be focused on the actual Russian market framework to embed Western experiences and best practices that we can communicate and translate to the Russian market. On the other hand, we'll proceed from the context that actual companies, attendees of the forum live in. This will give us an opportunity to take a deep dive in the diversity agenda in the Russian market with reliance on the best practice taken from the West. Thank you. You can go back to your own computer. And we are going on now. And there will be an inspirational TED talk. This will be again the cherry on top in the evening to think over the practices and experiences. This will be not only stories from celebrities or famous people or influencers, but we'll talk about equality, awareness, diversity, and inclusion from people living living next door to us. This could be couriers with an unconventional appearance or other people. So these are a few topics that we would like to present very much. There will be perhaps one day from the life of a courier, or why diversity is not working, or why we keep leasing our apartments to people who look Slavic. How can women wearing heels make cities uh, accessible to all of us? And we believe that it is always a good idea, and actually do join us. And here I'd like to complain about the following. We are hand shorted. We lack professional and research literature on these matters in Russian. We have to ask our friends who travel overseas to buy such books, and we have to hunt for such books on Amazon. And it is so exciting to bring those books to Russia, and we would love to make knowledge accessible to everyone. And we are going to set up a crowdfunding project to publish DEI books in Russian. We do not only want to bring those books here, but make sure that people can make notes, that they can actually will be able to use such books effectively. And you can become this project participant by investing money in publishing this literature. You can have such books on your bookshelves, and you can have Russian language books on your shelves. And those of you who can donate will not only be able to feel affiliation, but you will get some personal thank you from us, or maybe from the authors of such books. Thank you, Olga. I guess it is my part now. You know, when I opened up my Babat Consulting as an individual entrepreneur, I had some concerns about lack of sales skills. I'm not a good salesperson, but I found out that when we focus on something we love to do, we do not have to sell anything. And I think my team and I have devised a really great thing. It has a grand scale. It is challenging and ambitious. It is something that one cannot cope with single-handedly, but we can do it together. I can see comments in the chat room about who developed our brand, who did the branding, who prepared the slides. This is the result of a colossal effort of the entire team working 24/7. As you can imagine, we were trying to resolve organizational issues this night, and it seems that we ended up having something really nice. And now, when we are less nervous and more relaxed, to sum it up, we can say that we made it, and we would like all of you who will listen to this event, to the recording of this event, or who are attending this event online, uh, 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 would support us, this unique format that would be unique not only for Russia but globally. We would like our speakers and attendees and those people who hear about our forum say, wow, did you hear what they're going to arrange in Russia? We would like to see the day when people come to us for best practices and say, you know, we are embarking on the D&I agenda. Could you help us what to begin with? And I think this would be a great result. And for this purpose, all of us need to get engaged, need to be proactive and curious, and need to get together and pool our efforts. I'm not going through my slide, but it is from the bottom of my heart. It's the forum that we're planning. Actually, we have two things. We would like to launch a large community next year that will be a cool, inclusive platform to share practices, and we'll invite great business, culture, and academic experts to take a comprehensive look at each topic. And there will be the forum in April that will be very hands-on, focused on practice, and we would like it to be held with a big ban so that people could hear about it in this country and beyond. Not because of our ambitions, but because we would like to put our house in order. When I came back to Russia, I received questions about why I had come back. I spent several years overseas, and my answer was, I'm back, and I can see that here certain things, give a discordant note in terms of the norms existing in this country. And there are two options. You either change the environment here or change your environment by leaving it. And I selected changing the environment here. My colleagues Katya, Lena, and Olga have made the same choice, and we would like you to join us, and we would like you to become part and parcel of major changes in this country and worldwide. Well, why shouldn't we be ambitious? So do join our channel where we are going to share news about the forum and the community. We'll share our housekeeping details. There were lots of photos of us preparing for the event. So let's stay in touch. Please do not lose this QR code. Do join us. And moreover, in fact, this is something that is mind-blowing to me because we have managed to create our website, which is great, which has some key information about forthcoming events. We have ambassadors who are supporting us, and we have an outline of the program that lies in store for you. We've already done quite a lot. We have not come empty-handed to face you. So do join our channel, do visit our website, and stay with us. I think we can finish it, yes? Woo-woo. Well, I think we can remove the slides for all the speakers to be visible and all the participants to be seen. Here we are, all of us on the screen, the way we are. From different rooms, but at the same time, we can move from one room to another. Thank you very much to all our speakers who've been who agreed to join us today, who prepared their materials, who presented today, Antonia, Alena, Oleg, and Anna. And thank you very much to our team. We've been with you together with our simultaneous interpreter Henrietta and our gesture interpreter Natalia and our team Lena, Katya, Olga, and Igor, and myself, Zinia, or Ksyusha in Russian. Hooray! Thank you. Thank you.